So another question was, what do we feel about giving a child allowances, and what are some of the recommended best practices for giving a weekly allowance?
Well, that's a great question. I've actually done a lot of research on this, and I've come up. I can pretty much put the researchers into three different camps. One camp says it is totally useless to give allowance. It's not how the real world works. You should just kind of be a little more free-flowing and democratic, etc. That's one camp, and that's some people believe in that and some don't. Another camp believes that it is important to show your child how to manage money by giving them a set amount of money. But then that kind of splits off into, well, how do the kids get that money? Do they get it by earning it through odd jobs in the home, or do they just get it from you automatically without having to do anything? So those are the kind of three different groupings, if you will. I don't know. I don't personally have a stance. I think each family has to figure it out. I do think it's important for kids to begin to learn that money has limitations. Because in this day and age, when we literally go to a slot in the wall and take out cash, kids think cash comes out of a wall, and they think it is limitless. So I think it's very important if you give allowance either by tied to a chore or just give it to them as a way to kind of manage their money. I do think it's important to begin to show kids that they have a certain amount to spend, let's say each week or each month, on toys or books or whatever they buy, as a way to make them more responsible young people. You know, there's so much in the news these days about our sort of college age kids not really knowing about financial planning or how to balance checkbooks, getting into tremendous credit card debt. And honestly, I think a lot of that starts because we don't teach them at this age, 7, 8, 9, etc., about how to manage money. So it's really up to each person, each family. But I would recommend some way to teach your kids about money. It's up to you if you tie it to a chore or just give it to them. But I do think it's important to show about planning, about responsibility, that there are limits, and if they spend it in a given week or a month, they're not going to get more.
I wanted to add a few things. One is, I think if you do decide to give an allowance in your home, that it's probably not a good idea to take away for something they've done. Yeah. That creates a confusing message. If it's money certainly that they've earned for doing chores, then hitting their brother should probably not be a reason to lose allowance. That would have a whole other consequence. Yeah. But I think it's also a good way to begin to teach kids the value of money, and it may avoid some arguments when you are having those wonderful times at the grocery store when they would like to have this, this, and this. And you could give them the option, if they've saved up $2, to bring it with them when they go to the grocery store, and that's their time to pick one thing using their own money. It's often hard for us to say, are you sure you want to waste your money on that? But that's not our job at that point. It's really to say that costs $1.50. That seems like a good idea. It'll give you some extra money to either save or spend on something small. So you're also helping a little bit with some math skills and some money management. And it really does avoid some of the arguments of kids who often feel entitled. I want everything that I see. And you can, to a certain extent, if it's something small, encourage them to use their allowance for that. I know in some families, children are also encouraged to put aside a small part of their allowance to give to a charity of their choice, and actually save up some of their allowance and then mail it or go to the place and contribute it. And that's another nice model of money management that you may want to do in your home.
And there are even piggy banks that you can buy. I've only seen them in a store, kind of not anywhere near here, but I'm sure online you can get them. So it's a piggy bank divided into 3 parts. Oh, that's a nice and one part is for spending, one part is for sharing, and one part is for saving.
That's a nice idea.
So I think that's a wonderful idea, because then I think those 3 kind of sections, if you will, or topics are really how adults spend money too. We spend, hopefully we save, and hopefully we share as well. So I think it's beginning to help them understand that this is how their parents or grandparents also deal with money as an adult as well. And I'm sure you can go online and just Google, piggy bank, spend, share, save, and something will come up. They're really fun and really interesting. And it's lovely, I think, for kids, if they do get an allowance or get like some kind of gift from grandma or grandpa, I think it's wonderful to encourage them to save even part of it for a time period for a certain gift that they want that may cost a lot of money. It is one, I mean, they may not like it in the beginning, but even if they save half of it every week, for example, then by the end, by a month, sorry, at the end of a month, then they have saved enough money to buy this really special gift that they didn't have enough money for in the beginning. So it's a wonderful lesson in saving as well if they can save towards a larger goal.
It also, again, gets you to use your addition and subtraction facts.
Yes.
If this item costs $10 and I've saved $4.50 in 1 month, how much more do I need to save, and how long will that take me? So we have time for one last question, which is a good one. A parent wrote in that she doesn't believe in timeouts, but do we think it is appropriate to send kids to their room until they're calm and ready to discuss the issue in a calm manner, as in they get to decide when they come out, but they have to be calm? Thoughts?
Well, I think it's similar to a timeout, but just not with the word timeout.
Right.
And I think it's fine for any family to come up with their own language. You know, you could say, okay, you know, it seems like you could really use some quiet time right now, or some alone time right now. Sometimes parents start to get agitated, and it's good for them to go off and take some quiet time. So however you want to term it is important. I have seen it be a very effective form of giving people space from each other if tensions are rising, and a way when a kid or a parent can really calm themselves down. And it's helpful sometimes, depending on your beliefs and kind of how you run your family. Maybe the child or the parent can go off by themselves and do some deep breathing by themselves, even 3 or 4 deep breaths, where they can draw a picture. Sometimes kids actually calm themselves down by playing in their room. Other families think that timeout should be no playing, no fun, just sit and look at the wall. So it's really up to your family. I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong answer.
I do think that if you want to discuss with your child what happened and how you can improve that same situation or a similar situation in the future, you want to make sure that they're calm enough to talk.
Yes.
Some kids can leave a timeout situation or come out of their room in 10 minutes or however many minutes they need, and they'll be ready to talk. But I think if they're not at that point, the worst thing is to try to have a conversation or do a lecture when they're still raw from the experience.
Yeah.
However, it's fine to say, we will be discussing this tonight. And so they know that you haven't forgotten about this. You're just trying to create a better environment to have the discussion. And I would agree that in a lot of ways, going to your room is similar, unless you don't want your child playing at that point. But to go and lie on a bed is really a format for timeout. We're really saying to a child, you need to take some time to stop and think and calm down. So they both, you know, again, whatever you are referring to it as, it's an effective means to let a child stop one behavior and move to a different point.
Yeah. And I really think there's nothing wrong with modeling for your child that maybe you're feeling frustrated, so you really want to go take a few moments by yourself and just have some calm time for you as well. And not that the kid is, you know, is a bad kid or anything. No. You just may need some time because you're starting to feel yourself get angry. I think that's wonderful modeling of how to deal with stress. And kids can really use that.
So we just got another question, and I hate to not answer. I think we'll have to be rather short because we are planning to sign off in just a moment or two. But I think it's worth, having an initial discussion about. Mom is concerned about boys and some of the aggressive behavior that they sometimes show in school. Like to understand how teachers handle these issues. And sometimes after school would be a time that children who've managed to hold themselves together will display more aggression. And of course that's a concern. And of course, let's not be stereotyped here. Girls can be like that as well. So most parents are concerned when they see either their own child acting aggressive or someone acting aggressive towards a child. I do think that physical activity is really, really important on an everyday basis. That means that we give quite a lot of it in school, where kids are outside, they are doing big gross motor play, they're interacting in all kinds of ways, running and modeling different behavior, climbing on equipment. So that often really can settle down some of the aggressive behavior. After school is a time for some kids to really let loose. If you are feeling that there are particular issues related to your child, whether that child is receiving aggression or being aggressive, then I would suggest talking to the people at the supervision and seeing if there are some plans that they can make or some alternate activities they could guide the children towards.
Yeah, I think that's a very comprehensive answer. I did have we had a question emailed in before that I just want to very briefly address. It was something about a desire to watch videos, and I'm not sure exactly which type of videos, but in terms of this age group and the kind of expanded exposure to media and movies and TV, there's a really helpful parent website called Common Sense Media. Common as in COMMON, sense, SENSE, Common Sense Media. I think it's .org, I'm not sure. It's either .org or .com. And that website actually kind of evaluates and reviews different movies and TV shows out there and kind of gives an appropriateness level for different age groups. I find it very, very helpful. Common Sense Media. There was one question about shyness, and I think we actually touched on this a little bit with the younger kids, so this is quite appropriate. One thing that to kind of ask yourself is whether or not the shyness is having a problem. Whether or not the shyness is a problem. Is the child feeling that being shy is a bad thing? Is a child feeling that being shy is keeping them away from friends? Is it interrupting school somehow? So kind of getting a sense of what the child feels about their shyness, or maybe the child doesn't feel shy at all. And also you can check with teachers or camp counselors or daycare providers about whether or not this child's shyness is interfering in any way, because maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that the child is quiet and shy and reserved, but still engage and focus in whatever they're doing. Oftentimes, parents may see shyness as a negative, but a lot of times it's just who the kid is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think if it does interrupt, then that's something to be addressed. But first, I think you have to play detective and figure out if the shyness is a problem or not.
Okay, just one last comment, and that is that the parent wrote in that sometimes the most aggression is happening during the recess and physical activity. I think that this is definitely a reason to discuss the concern with the parent, with the teacher, and also to approach Malika if you're really uncomfortable with what you're hearing from your child. You know, when you're watching a large group of kids on a playground, sometimes you don't see everything. So if your child is coming home and sharing information with you, we would like to hear it, and teachers would like to hear it. Sometimes kids need to be guided into more constructive play. Sometimes what looks kind of aggressive to us is very age appropriate. And so we want to make sure that you're not feeling worried or anxious about something that we can do something about or we can reassure you about. And I think on that note, we would like to encourage you to send us your emails or talk to us if you have specific concerns about your child. And this is our new effort at communicating, so you don't have to come to campus all the time. And we will be asking for your feedback. But if you like this format, which we like doing, then we'd be happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for being in our initial audiences.
Yay! Thank you, and feel free to write if you have more questions or comments. Bye.